Hey healers, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. Let's chat. We're talking about healing mind control today. What does that mean? Healing mind control is the name of an ebook. It's the name of a ritual that I channeled, and I channeled it at the beginning of 2018, specifically for breaking down the unconscious programming and expectations that you have from based on society, based on your upbringing, based on your religious background, your culture. There's so much that goes into creating communal culture, and a lot of it has to do with collective consciousness. The consciousness in a particular group is shared, meaning everybody in that group affects the consciousness of that group. So if there are divergent viewpoints in the group, a lot of times those divergent viewpoints and the people with those divergent viewpoints are pushed out of the group. They're not accepted in the group. They're not allowed to be in the group. They'll be disowned, disqualified. People will say things like that they don't represent us, or they don't want they don't want to be represented by those people because they don't want their consciousness to be considered the same as that person. You see this a lot in any different type of group, any type of group culture. So what's interesting about it is that it on the negative side, it binds you to a shared reality with the members of that group. So for me personally, going from POC, persons of color consciousness, Palestinian consciousness, coming from the social justice community, the activist community organizing, where people are tackling these different societal issues and they're saying like, no, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to go against them. We're going to break them down. We're going to change them. And this is how we're going to do it. And we're fighting for our rights, and we're disenfranchised in all these different ways. That disenfranchisement is actually, it becomes a manipulation tactic and a strategy, a tool to get needs met, because the whole point of this entire organization, like, let's say you have an organization that fights to have better media representation of women and girls of color. That organization wouldn't even need to exist in the first place if there wasn't already blatant discrimination in the media and blatant grooming, representation as sexual objects, representation as like objects that can be hurt and that should be hurt, or that's normal for. So we see how these, it's like it affects real life. Okay, so if somebody's watching a TV show and they see certain thing happen over and over and over, for example, Law and Order SVU, these shows and these movements and these organizations, they ostensibly seem like they're bringing light to the situation, like they're doing a good thing, like they're fighting for victims and they're putting it out there like this isn't okay and it shouldn't be happening. But what my perspective is on it is that it normalizes these things. And then for us to be fighting against them, or to be putting so much of our energy into being in opposition to that which is trying to harm us, we lose our whole entire lives. It takes our whole entire lives away from us. If you come from a political background, if you come from a consciousness of I have to fight for my people are under attack, and I need to stand up for us, and I need to stand up for myself, it leaves very little room to create authentically. Everything that you create, it's like always a response to something else, and it's always a response to something that's trying to hurt you. So it squashes creativity. So in my process, a lot of my process is just like being able to uncover mind control, to be able to utilize authentic creativity. And that is missing from a lot of disciplines. So a lot of people are creating a bunch of work, regurgitating a bunch of things, learning things, repeating them. Essentially, a lot of people in our society, they're clones of other people, whether it's their family members, their teachers, other people that have influenced them. They're straight up clones of other people. They took that person's mindset and way of being and outlook, and they adopted it as their own. And for example, medical school. In medical school, you might have one teacher to like 500 students or 1,000 students that are all learning from that one teacher. So those students are becoming clones of that teacher because they're memorizing verbatim and they're using what that teacher is teaching them as fact. Versus a more of a unschooling approach or a autonomous approach where you find the answers within yourself. And a lot of people will be totally uncomfortable with their doctor or a medical professional or anybody that's providing any type of care to them to be finding it out for themselves, because they're like, okay, what the fuck are your credentials? Sorry, you guys. Sorry, YouTube. What are your freaking credentials, honey? I channeled it. It's not good enough. But in the spiritual healing arts world, it is actually. And we get to play around with a lot of concepts because we don't need that specificity at this time. We have room to explore. And a lot of people would beg to differ and say like that actually spiritual work is very specific and you need to be very specific. But for some people, depending on how your body works and how your brain and your soul operates, you can be limitlessly floating in a expansive void that brings you home to yourself every time. And the good thing about the specificities is knowing what to go to. For a lot of the people that I work with, the people in my constituency, many of us have experience with non-consensual mind control. So that's people outside of us using us in ways that benefit them, controlling us mentally so that we'll acquiesce and accommodate to their needs. And this could be on an individual, interpersonal level with a partner. It could be on a global level with multinational corporations that use their advertising to brainwash you. It could be your family that's mind controlling you, manipulating you. They're telling you what life is like, and they're grooming you to be in a way that will benefit them, even if it's not accurate or if there's better information out there. And a huge part of what we work on is being mentally abused in religious institutions and spiritual spaces. So a lot of the people that I work with are survivors of cults, and we're prone to, and this is reflective of those love goddesses and healers that come from the Magdalene lineage. We are very susceptible to mind control. We are the oracles. Like, if you ever like seen a movie or something where they showed the oracles at Delphi, and they've basically like their eyes are rolled back in their heads and they're just lost in the abyss, channeling messages, and they're right there on the edge of this world and the other worlds, and they stay there. And for women and feminine energy centered beings and womb based beings, we are like this. Like, this is why we need containment. So in the absence of safe, secure, loving, supportive containment in a slave world, in a slave planet, there's not that containment. And so it's easy to set up these other structures of mind control to funnel people in, which starts with the mind and the mind control, and then it goes to controlling the whole body. Because as you'll see with this, looking for my, yes, I ordered this off Amazon. It's a Kabbalah infographic, and it's really helpful for studying the Kabbalah, which I just got into because I started channeling the Kabbalah, realizing that I was familiar with these energy centers through my energy work that I do with Heaven on Earth Reiki, the Reiki style that I channeled. And then I started to browse this, and I saw this, and I was like, oh, interesting. This is basically what I channeled about the Kabbalah, is that this is how people spiritually enslave other people, is through the energy centers of the Kabbalah. And so they start by going in with a sword in the top, and then they get in here and they attack your wisdom. And so you see that it goes here and 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 down. If the sword can get into your root, then you're locked. You're locked into their paradigm. This is what my 6-month course, Root Lock, is for breaking. It's for breaking these. And just by me telling you guys this, some of you guys will be able to figure out how to do this and you'll be able to start working on it. But I still encourage you to study with me and work with me if you can, because it helps to have support. And it's going to be really, really rare for this is a thing too. So it's going to be really, really rare for you to really figure it out. A lot of times what happens when working with teachers, because of these pervasive wounds, people don't want to work with teachers because they're afraid, because of these things that have happened in past lives, that have happened in other places. And so as a result, people have the body memory of being abused, being mentally abused and mind controlled by their spiritual guides and their spiritual teachers. So there's a huge amount of resistance to it. And what a lot of spiritual teachers don't realize how susceptible they are to infiltration and how much that can hurt the people that they work with and the people that are under their care. I am extremely thorough with my practices and with rooting out mind control that I have within me that could enable me to unconsciously hurt somebody else. Because I've done this healing mind control ritual over and over and over again since 2018. I've done it most months, every month since 2018. So, what you'll want to do is get into it. Start now. It takes time. It takes time to get through this stuff. And the longer you do it, the more you have built up layers. And I know that there's I'm not the only expert out there on this stuff. So I'm really interested to hear what other people have to say. And I love to learn more. But this is my teaching space. So, I got to flex and talk my shit so y'all know that this is what we do here. We break these curses, and they're very challenging. And so, for me, what I've done this whole time is I've just channeled. I have worked minimally with teachers. I've studied minimally. I haven't gone deep in my study. I wanted to see how much I could channel on my own without anybody else. And that's a hallmark of my work, is like, what can you figure out for yourself and do for yourself when you don't have a teacher, you don't have a guru, you don't have a spirit guide, you don't have you can't even trust your intuition. You don't even have anybody. Like, you're literally alone and completely lost in the sauce, and you still got to figure it out. So this is what I really specialize in, because you never know when you might end up in a situation like that with the way things go in life. Especially when you're on a path of expansion, things could change very rapidly. You want the ability to be able to put them back together again in a way that makes sense for you. And for a lot of us, like, you just have to go through it, and that's how you figure it out. And I've said before, like, come study with me, learn from me, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did. But a lot of times you actually do have to make your own mistakes. Even if you're not making the same mistakes I actually made, you're making your own mistakes, and that's a good thing. So I would recommend starting now. A lot of times people think that they need to wait to get certified, or they need to wait until they have someone to tell them what to do. I don't feel that way. You learn best through doing. Like, it's what you do that matters most. You learn best through doing. So do it. So this is how people get really good at this, is they practice. You have to practice, and then you see what the results are of what you're practicing, and then you can go from there. And as you grow older and you grow stronger in your work, you learn more, and you're able to share more, and you're able to do more. And this is one of the reasons why elders are under attack, because by the time they get up in age that way, they have amassed so much knowledge that will be so beneficial for them to share with the younger generation. But if they're not there, they can't share it. This is why age is such a huge factor. So that's another point of brainwashing. And one of the things that I really wanted to focus on in this talk was talking about Stockholm syndrome and talking about the ways that a lot of us in my constituency, if you're tuning in or you're here, you're probably one of these people or close to one of these people, where you've been groomed since childhood as a to be groomed into sex slavery, essentially. So what does that look like? That looks like everybody worships Santa Claus and can't wait till Santa Claus comes. And when Santa Claus comes, you sit on his lap and he says, have you been naughty or have you been nice? And if you've been nice, he gives you a present. And if you've been naughty, then you get coal. But what do you make from coal? Diamonds. Okay. I'm getting too hyped. What do you make from coal? You make diamonds. What do you get if you don't get the coal? You get a bunch of cheap toys that are just going to break and fill up a landfill. But that's what we're taught to want more than the coal. That's the alchemy. The coal is the alchemy of the experience, of what we learn when we're not being so nice and we're not being such good little girls and boys. And that's what is inside of you that wants to come out. Burdened by all the societal expectations, it can't, because it feels like it's going to die. It feels like you'll die if you let that out. All these parts of us that we were taught to shame and suppress, like if you felt sad, if you felt mad, even if you felt too happy, or if you just were like having too much fun, dancing, music, like there's so many things. And then it's like, even if these things aren't suppressed, there's a part that's suppressed. You can't go that way. You have to go an acceptable way. So this is something that I just went through, where I have been spent the past several years just going nuts, like, and saying whatever I needed to say, even if it sounded unhinged and crazy, and like being very off-putting to a lot of people, putting my baggage and my problems and stuff and just putting it out on everybody. Why did that happen? Because my whole rest of my life up until that point, I took on everybody's baggage. I took on everybody's everything. I took it all on. I took it all into me like it was mine. I made everybody's problems more important than my problems. Well, I didn't even see a possible way to solve my problems, but at least I could help them solve theirs. But the problems that I had, and I didn't realize until I got to the point where, like, I got old enough to start to think like, okay, I really want something for my life and I have a vision for my life. And I got old enough to where I started looking at the other elders and other people in my family and just thinking like, what do I want that's different than theirs? Because it seems harder for me to obtain what I need. And I had to completely break everything down and rebuild it back up. And that's what I teach in my 6-month course, Root Lock. It's for spiritual warriors that are breaking generational curses, because breaking generational curses sounds good. You're literally breaking curses. These are black magic curses that have had generations to build their strength and their power. So if you think that they're going to leave just because you burn a little sage, they're not. They're not. They're not going to leave just because you burned a little sage. They're a part of you. You have to literally rewire and restructure and reconfigure your entire makeup. You're doing epigenetics in real time. That's where you alter your genetic makeup in real time to the point that it alters your DNA for generations to come. You're not the same human that your ancestors were. So we're breaking down the consciousness of war, of fighting, of division, of separation consciousness, which like says that other people are different than you, but we're actually all one person, literally. Like we all have pretty much the same features and characteristics on the outside anyways. But we're not gonna get into all the different types of bloodlines and lineages, because there's all types of different humans that are not necessarily human. And this is, again, another part of healing mind control, is that if you've been mentally programmed and conditioned all your life to believe that things are a certain way and that people are a certain way, and anything outside of that, we don't ask questions, we don't talk about it, that's haram, or that's evil, that's sacrilegious, that's devil worshiping, that's impolite, that's unsafe, that's unprofessional, we won't go there then, because there's too much to lose. In an environment where free thought is encouraged and where individuality and sovereignty is nurtured and cultivated, then there's so much more access that we can have to the totality of human history, of the Earth's history, of the galaxy's history, and all the things that have happened here and happened to us, and the things that we have in our memory. If it's suppressed, it's going to hurt us from the inside out. But if we can explore it and at least bring it up to the surface to be looked at, then we have a much better chance of doing something productive with it. And of course, that's going to be under attack with everything from the food that we eat to the media we consume to the education / indoctrination we receive. And this is why it's so important to choose the sources that you take in wisely, because if you sit up and listen to TV and the news and mainstream media outlets, they're going to tell you that it's a conspiracy theory to think differently, or that everything is what is being presented to you, and that if it's not, then it's fake news, or it hasn't been verified by independent fact checkers. But really, it's like, why are they going to give you the information that you need to free yourself from them? And it's all in here, your energy centers. So this is why I created a 6-month course, and I might make it longer after this year, because I think we might need more time to really do it. Seeing how everything has been going with the clients that I've been working with, it's very hard to keep going with this. It's been very hard for me. If you guys look at my transition and like the journey that I've been on, like I was saying, you guys, I was pushing people away hardcore because I was so used to taking in everybody's problems and taking on everybody's problems as my own. So I just didn't want anybody around me because I didn't want that to happen, and I didn't feel like I could really set those boundaries. It's part of healing mind control, because it's your mind that is controlling this. It's what you think of yourself. It's how you perceive of yourself and what you think you're worth that will allow other people to cross your boundaries, or for you to not even set them with them. Because this is a big issue for a lot of my clients, because you're dealing with the mind control of Stockholm syndrome and of sex slavery, is that for a lot of my clients, and you have past life memories of possibly like being choked or being hurt in some type of way, being kept from speaking, being kept from dancing, being kept from moving. So you feel this in your body. So in a situation where you might not even want to not set a boundary with the person, like you just can't not. You just literally can't not allow everything and take in everything and then ask for more, because it's how you've been groomed. So we start looking at these things. So one of the things that a person can do to help people like this is to not let them do that. Most people aren't going to care enough about you to not let you do that, though. So this is where we practice our self-love and we care for ourselves, and we go back to those times where we were groomed in childhood, where we were put on Santa's lap and we were told to be a good girl or give our tooth to the tooth fairy. Like, why am I giving my tooth? Never mind. We were groomed in so many different ways. Even, being called fast, or a whore, or a hoe, or a slut, or something, or being forced to cover up, or being labeled as too sexual from a young age, when all you were doing was like having fun and laughing and playing and being yourself. And human beings are naturally sexual. That's how we got here. And in another paradigm, we don't have to work, we just have sex, and that's what gives us everything we need. And those are the ancient fertility cults and fertility rituals in which all of the society would participate, and specifically those that were sexually gifted, that were identified from birth as being sexually gifted. And that's where a lot of y'all would fall into that label. So of course they're going to try to make you think that sex is bad and that it's wrong to use your body however you want to use it. It's your choice. Only you know what is best for you. But the best thing is to be able to make your own decisions outside of society's indoctrination and religious indoctrination, cultural family standards that are not yours and that don't actually serve you. So as soon as you join Root Lock, you get the Healing Mind Control ritual. It's a ritual that you perform. Actually, when I channeled the ritual, I performed it on the full moon. You can still perform it at any time of the moon cycle that you like, but if you'll browse my other videos, you'll see that we're not really that locked in with the moon anymore. We're more so choosing to lock in with Earth. And the whole way that I've been able to make this transition to that, after being very heavily moon centric and moon identified and moon controlled for generations of my family, was to do the Healing Mind Control ritual regularly and to spend time with the moon, a lot of time with the moon. And I started to understand the moon and the moon's secrets. And the more time you spend with anything that exists, the more you'll learn its secrets. And that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing, you know? So a lot of times we're quick to judge other people that sin differently than us or that show up differently than us. That's heavy mind control and mental manipulation at play right there, because what part of you thinks that any human behavior is there to be judged or vilified or rejected? Of course, you're only human. We are. I think I'm a human, right? Do I look like a human to you guys? It's only natural to judge sometimes, but when you start turning that judgment back on yourself and like think like, what, how am I participating in this? Because it's very easy for people to say what other people are doing wrong, but they're also involved in the situation. So right now, one of the heaviest forms of mind control you're going to see is this whole narcissist paradigm. Everything is about the narcissist. The narcissist does this, the narcissist does that. This is what the narcissist does. This is creating very intense, very strong victimhood consciousness in the collective, specifically people that identify as empaths, that identify as spiritually sensitive or highly sensitive people. And the whole time, what they're not realizing in their rush to condemn the narcissist is that they are too meek and too weak, and they were drawn to the person that they felt safe with because that person was so big and bold and bad. But then they couldn't be that big and bad and bold with that person to hold their own with that person. They got hurt and they got mad, and the only thing that they could do about it later was to talk about and vilify about this person's a narcissist. So I encourage everybody to get a little healthy dose of narcissism, and let that be the first way that you brainwash yourself, is brainwashing yourself into believing in yourself. Go into your mirror neurons. This is what I've been doing. I've been using my Reiki style, which is Heaven on Earth Reiki, which is my ancestral lineage energy healing. And when I channel Heaven on Earth Reiki, I was channeling from my ancestors, specifically my ancestors that are queer, sex workers. What I found out from doing that was, first of all, I had a lot of them. I found out so much mysteries from just calling on those ancestors. When you initiate into Heaven on Earth Reiki, you can specify the particular ancestors that you want to invite in, or you can just generally invite your ancestors, your elevated ancestors. But I have a protocol that allows you to channel your own indigenous energy medicine instead of the typical Reiki initiation that is given to you by a Reiki master, where they stand behind you and they stand over your head and they're drawing different symbols into your crown and implanting things into your aura that is coming through them from their channeled Reiki, that they were initiated in through their lineage, which the whole mythology of it is very colonial, and it is very new world. New, can I say this? Will I get flagged? It's very NWO. New world, new werewolves. Order. I'm like practicing and playing with like how to say things differently so that the algorithm doesn't like flag them. But sometimes we just gotta get up in here and be real about the fact that we're talking about sex slavery and how to end it on earth so that we can have more freedom, more joy, more sovereignty, and more pleasure in our lives because we deserve it. You deserve to be having amazing sex that heals you, heals the planet, brings forth abundance to where you don't even have to work because your sexual energy is so potent and your magnet inside of you is so tuned that it will just draw to you and draw you to whatever you need to be or wherever you need to be. And this is all possible, you guys. I have completely transformed my life from where every relationship that I got into was an abusive relationship. Everything that I did, I always ended up the victim. Every group that I joined, I always got kicked out of it. I'm at the point now where I can't get kicked out of anything that I'm a part of because I'm such an integral part of it, and it's such an integral part of me. It's not something that I joined, it's something that I am. I know that there are people listening that can relate to feeling like you don't belong anywhere because you've been scapegoated. And once you've been scapegoated, that means that the sins of an entire group have been laid on you and you've been cast out like you were the problem. And you were never the problem. You were just the most sensitive there and the one with the strongest healing gifts to be able to take it all. So now that you know that, you use these tools to recondition yourself to accepting love, support, instead of always giving it. The more that you can take in, the more love and support that you can take in, the better you feel and the better everyone else feels too. And then you don't have to go all psycho on them and have a BPD or bipolar episode or whatever. You can just literally like live your life and like without being bothered because you've been able to set the secure, solid, stable boundaries that you need to feel safe and to protect yourself. So I'm going to log off here, healers. But I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hitting that like button. That really helps my channel. I really appreciate you guys. I see that everybody that tuned in live hit the like button. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate your attention to my channel. I love hearing your feedback and your comments. So drop your 2 cents in the chat. Do not hesitate. Do not be afraid. This is a place that you can open up that throat chakra and be heard. Because for a lot of us, we deal with the throat chakra blockage, and it comes from mind control, that a forced vow of silence. Okay. So one of the most powerful and potent mantras in the healing mind control ritual, which is full of so many different intentions to release mind control from society, from interpersonal relationships, from religion, and it has a special section that focuses on Stockholm syndrome, which Stockholm syndrome is where you're kidnapped or you're abducted or you're abused, and you fall in love with your abductors, you start to care about them, and then identify with them and become one of them. So it has a special section for clearing that out. And that's one of the strongest ways for us to end sex slavery and colonialism as we know it on this planet. It's an inside job. It starts with breaking down these paradigms within yourself. So one of the things that like I was gonna say something else. Okay, so one of the things that's in the healing mind control ritual that is like so powerful is that we ask to be released of the way that these things benefit us. So, for example, if you're trying to release the spirit of codependency or the spirit of racism or whatever, like, and if you're trying to release something that's harmful, you're not going to be able to release it if you currently are benefiting from it. So let's say that you want to do magical work to hex the patriarchy. I wouldn't. But let's say you want to do witchcraft to like bring down the state, but you get food stamps. I'm not saying, not to do what you need to do, but these are sacrifices and compromises that you'll think that you might need to make when you start doing this work. Like I can't receive certain types of assistance because it clashes with the spiritual work that I'm doing and that I've done for my freedom and for my sovereignty. And I really recommend going this path because it's a path to wealth. I really, really recommend going on the path of sovereignty. But I like to warn people, because when you start this, you might not be able to do the same things that you were doing before. If you're used to getting your money a certain way and then you break those curses, those demons aren't bringing you that energy anymore. So you have to find it in a new place and in a new source. And the best place to source it is through yourself and through your connection with the earth. So this is what I support you in doing with root lock. Root lock, that's our root chakra. That's the chakra that holds our lineage, that holds sex, death, rebirth, all the scorpionic themes. I'm Scorpio rising, Scorpio Mars, Scorpio Saturn in the 12th house. So this is my sphere. If somebody was to look at my birth chart when I was a child, they would say this baby is a gifted sex priestess. Take her to the temple. It's time to start training her immediately. But I grew up in this society where I received my training through sexual abuse, but I don't know what the difference is. I don't know what they did back then in those temples. I received my conditioning anyways, even though it wasn't out in the open. It wasn't a thing that everybody knew about. But we're using these tools, we're breaking down mental conditioning so that we can actually remember what happened to us in childhood. We can actually remember what happened to us in our past lives. We can remember our dreams better. Because for a lot of people with this significant trauma to the root chakra, significant trauma of sexual abuse, there's a lot of stuff that's hard to remember because it's too hard to face and it's too hard to accept and deal with. And if there's not enough safety in the physical environment, then the stuff won't come up. So for me, like, since I moved, I have my own place. I'm here, like, I'm surrounded by everything that I love and that makes me feel good. A lot more has been able to come out. I've faced like shadow after shadow after shadow after shadow all year that I thought I was doing shadow work before, but baby, no. I wasn't really facing anything. I was just bypassing it. I was very skillfully, narcissistically manipulating my world so that I wouldn't have to face what I needed to face. And that's what majority of women do, because we can. Because as a woman, you can create your own world. So you create your own world, you create your own family. And that right there is where you get to keep soothing yourself and never having to face anything. And that is damaging our families, that's damaging our lineages, and it's damaging our worlds. So we are the origin point. We don't get to just sit up here and be like, oh, the narcissist hurt me. Like, no, instead become the narcissist and become powerfully self-focused and self-full, so that what you create, what is under your dominion, that you have responsibility for nurturing, is fruitful and outlasts you and has a lasting legacy. And that's what we do here. That's what we are doing. So join us, stay tuned, subscribe, like, share, say mashallah, tell a friend to tell a friend, and stay tuned. Peace.